Now, Jesus was teaching in one of the synagogues on the Sabbath, and just then there appeared a woman with a spirit that had crippled her for 18 years. She was bent over and was quite unable to stand up straight. When Jesus saw her, he called over and said, "Woman, you are set free from your ailment." When he laid his hands on her, immediately she stood up straight and began praising God. But the leaders of the synagogue, indignant because Jesus had cured on the Sabbath, kept saying to the crowd, "There are 6 days on which work ought to be done. Come on those days and be cured, and not on the Sabbath day." But the Lord answered him and said, "You hypocrites! Does not each of you on the Sabbath untie his ox or his donkey from the manger and lead it to water? And ought not this woman, a daughter of Abraham, who Satan bound for 18 long years, be set free from this bondage on the Sabbath day?" When he said this, all his opponents were put to shame, and the entire crowd was rejoicing at all the wonderful things being done by him. This is the gospel of the Lord. Please be seated. Grace, peace, and mercy are yours from the triune God. Amen. A few years ago, I was at a wedding reception. It was the wedding of one of my wife's work friends. And so I didn't know anyone there super well, which can either be a blessing or sort of a dangerous situation of small talk for a pastor, because you just don't know who you're going to meet. When you meet somebody, people kind of ask you, "So what do you do for work?" And I get it. It's a easy way to chat. Maybe you'll find someone with something in common. Maybe you'll both be software developers or something. But unless I know the group really well, I usually keep what I do to myself. But of course, it wouldn't be a good story if I had managed to avoid it. Apparently, the groomsmen all went to the same private Catholic school together, and so they knew about religion. So anyway, let me tell you about my new friend Josh, who had just enough to drink that night to really tell me all about what was wrong with the church. As if I didn't know. He must have heard from someone that I was a pastor, my wife's friend probably, trying to play a nice, fun joke on me. I didn't have to tell him. He just walked up to me in the corner that I was standing in and saddles up to the table I was casually trying to hold down and says, "So, you're a pastor." Which is bad because he knows that I'm a pastor and he still wants to talk about it. So I said, "Yeah, I'm a Lutheran pastor. What do you do for work?" No bites. "Why are you a pastor?" Really, he said it more like, "Why are you a pastor?" And like the way he said it and he looked at me sort of seemed to convey not just asking why I was a pastor, but why asking anybody would be a pastor, could be a pastor, or a Christian, or believe in the institution of the church. There was a lot in that question. That's what I'm trying to say. And I said, I know the church isn't perfect, but I think it can still make a positive impact on people's lives. I think Jesus is supposed to free people. I have experienced that freedom, and so I try hard to help others experience that freedom as well. And usually that answer will lead me to a casual, "That's really cool, man," but and typically people will kind of go into "I really like Jesus too, but religion is hard for me," and say that they believe in God and just don't go to church. Or that's one option. Or they'll say that they really believe in God and start treating me like I'm a weird conduit to the divine, which, to be clear, makes me very uncomfortable. And so neither of those things happened with Josh. I told him why I was a pastor, and he got right after it. He started talking about how the church treats people and about all the ways it makes life worse and about science, abstractly. And how could you, a seemingly reasonable person, still be involved with such a thing? It was a very long conversation. He talked about his church drama going up, his issues with the church, my issues of the church. We talked about many bad things the church with a capital C has done, his theological gripes, baggage, and hurts. It was a really tough story. And at the end of the night, when he was slurring his words a little bit more, and after many attempts by his friends to help lead him away, and after he apologized once for taking up my entire evening and then coming back with another idea, we said goodbye. And I felt really sorry, because the church is supposed to be a place that gives life, not takes it away. It's supposed to make people's lives easier and better and not worse. And though I think it was a little healing for him to have me agree with him about the things that have been done in not so good ways in the church, and to reject hurtful theology, his experience of the church and so many other people's experience of the church is not one of grace and freedom. It's not full of joy. As the old guy at my church growing up would say, as we are running around playing and making too much noise, church is not supposed to be fun. But that is bad theology. It is. It is bad theology. If we look at this text today, church, the Sabbath, it should be joyful and freeing and full of life. And the church has failed to teach that. In the story today, a woman in pain comes to Jesus in the synagogue while he is teaching, and she has been bent over with back issues for 18 years. She has had a demon, and Jesus heals her. He puts his hands on her and says, "Woman, you are free from your ailment." Boom, healed. And it seems like such a good thing, but the religious authorities don't like it, which always just makes me giggle, because if you didn't know any better, you would think that these religious authorities had the power to heal this woman, but she only shows up on the Sabbath day, so they never heal her, which is funny, because it's almost like they're just choosing to not heal her. They do have the power, they're just choosing not to use it. Of course, that's wrong. They probably don't have the power to heal her. Jesus has the power to heal her. It's almost like they're saying, well, it's wrong. I could have done it, but it's the Sabbath, so too bad. Come back on a weekday. Of course, they can't heal her, and it seems like they might be a little bitter about the freedom that Jesus is offering. And so Jesus says, "Does not each of you on the Sabbath untie his ox or his donkey from the manger and lead it to water? And ought not this woman, a daughter of Abraham, whom Satan bound for 18 long years, be set free from this bondage on the Sabbath day?" It's good. Oh, that is good. Because the Sabbath has been a big deal for a really long time for Jewish folks, even before Jesus had come around. But does anybody know how long and why they celebrate the Sabbath outside of the people that were in Bible study on Wednesday? Ooh, very good, Chris. Very good. 10 Commandments. That's right. That's right. That is where we see the beginning of the Sabbath tradition, is the 10 Commandments. Yeah. So Jesus calls this woman a daughter of Abraham and suggests that she should be freed from her bondage. Daughter of Abraham, freed from her bondage. Who are Abraham and Sarah's children? Isaac and Ishmael. And who are Isaac and Rebekah's children? Jacob and Esau. And Jacob's name changes to be Israel. He wrestles with God by the river. And Israel has 12 sons. And what happens to those 12 sons? They become the tribes of Israel. And they end up in Egypt for 400 years. And the family grows numerous, more and more, until they are like a nation people. Not just like a family, they're like a whole group of people, a big, big group of people. Generations pass, a lot of them, and God's people, the family of Abraham and Sarah, Isaac and Rebekah, and Israel, they are bent over in work. They build bricks. They are enslaved. They are in bondage. Like this woman in the story. For centuries, generations, until they are liberated by God. And it is that is when we are given the 10 Commandments to remember. It says, remember the Sabbath and keep it holy, because remember, once you were slaves in the land of Egypt. Before the Exodus from Egypt, it's not really in the Bible, this practice of Sabbath. There is this blip in Genesis about God resting on the Sabbath, but humans keeping the Sabbath in like a temple setting, in an organized thing, it doesn't happen until God leads them out of the land of Egypt and gives them the 10 Commandments. It is to remember that once they were bent over and forced to set their humanity aside and work as machines, once they were belittled and crushed, once they were unable to rest. But no more, they are now liberated. God's mighty hand has led them out. And now Jesus is encountering this daughter of Abraham who is bent over for years, unable to stand up straight, and Jesus frees her, doing exactly what the Sabbath is supposed to be, remembering. Liberation, healing, joy. The irony here is that the religious authorities accuse him of not keeping the Sabbath because he is working by doing this healing, but Jesus reminds them all of the whole point of the Sabbath. Remember the Sabbath and keep it holy, for once you were slaves in the land of Egypt. That means they're not anymore. They have been liberated. They have been freed by God to embrace their humanity, to enjoy the sanctity of life itself. It means that each Sabbath is a little mini liberation. It's a day to celebrate freedom and joy and grace and to remember God's love. It's a day to know justice. It's a day for the powers of evil to lose all their power. It's a day for the bondages of sin to be loosed. And if we are not doing that, Jesus says to the religious authorities and us, we've lost the point. If Sabbath doesn't heal, if it doesn't free, if it doesn't liberate, if it doesn't celebrate our authenticity, if it doesn't help us remember the story of God that gives life, then we've lost the point of Sabbath. Yeah. You all know I take joy very seriously. I believe joy is sacred. It is an expression of freedom that the world so often tries to crush out of us. Sometimes, if the conversations we have with folks that have been hurt by the church does some of that crushing. But it should not be. The church should not be a place where joy is not found. The church should be a place to find freedom. The church should be a place where people are liberated. The church should help be a place to find rest and be healed. And if it's not doing that, the church is, or if it's like planning to shame people or crush them or take away their rights, then the church needs to look at its priorities. And lucky for us gathered here, we try hard to be a community that lives into that joy and freedom together. And we don't get it right all the time. We don't. But there are moments in this congregation that make my soul smile. I have never heard somebody here that church is not supposed to be fun. Kids wiggle around and be kids. People tell jokes on the side during worship. Meals get shared full of abundance. There are times, like at our retreat last Sunday, where we learn about trauma and healing, moments of God's love that is so out there and available for people that it's like a balm of Gilead that reminds us of God's presence, not just being here, but everywhere in our lives. It's beautiful. And that's what church is supposed to be about. That's what Sabbath is supposed to be about. Sabbath should do something. It should free. It should heal us from the weak and liberate us from the ways of sin. It should express God's love. It should fill us up and send us out fed by those free gifts of God, ready to free others. I pray that we can, at our church, more and more find that kind of Sabbath together. I hope more and more that we can tell other people about this good and healing gift. I hope more and more that we can be drawn further into this God of healing and freedom so that we can help others experience it too. And like the crowd who sees Jesus heal, I hope we go wild for it and rejoice by all the wonderful things that he has done. Amen. Amen. Well of Hope is an inclusive community of faith in the ELCA. We proclaim God's love for all. We create community through worship, study, and play, and we serve and love. If you want to be a part of this, sign up for our weekly email online here. Follow us on our social media or stop by worship at 10 o'clock at New Hope Presbyterian Church. Go through the big wooden doors on the right. We look forward to seeing you.